Hello, I have Niti Nadarajah with me, and thank you so much for coming. And we're going to talk about story and emotion and lived experience and truth. So these are great subjects, especially for you, Niti, because guess what? They came straight from your soul. So
Yeah.
what did you really mean? Oh, did I say that? I love that part. So when you think of story, what comes up for you when you hear that word story? You're so good. You're such a great storyteller. And I love your posts because of it. You use story.
Yeah, thank you. It's so really for me, this whole idea of story has really developed over the last couple of years, really through writing and through sharing my views. And it's interesting, actually. The first thing that comes to mind is I was doing this. I was asked to do a presentation not that long ago, actually about 6 months ago. I was talking to someone, and when I first started talking to them, I was like, okay, what do you want me to talk about? And they're like, oh, something within the inclusion diversity space. And I'm like, okay, I'll have a think, and let's catch up again in a few months, and we'll sort something out then. And so we did. And then when I was in the middle of talking to them and I was trying to come up with that topic, and I was like, what should I speak about? What's an angle? Talk about something from the inclusion and diversity perspective. And all of a sudden it clicked. And I was like, oh my God, how about we talk about the power of storytelling, right? In creating inclusive environments, right?
Ooh, so
Yeah. And I
beautiful.
was like, And the reason it clicked is because I was kind of thinking about everything that I speak about. And I was like, this is all about story. Like all of it is about story and the way that I communicate. And it's interesting because often you'll see people on social media say, you shall not use the word I in a social media post. And I'm like, I use the word I very frequently in my social media posts because my posts are all about me and my experience as relates to other people, right?
Yeah, it's a
And
great teaching. Yeah, you're always ratting out yourself. I love that part about you and Shel Shapiro. You're always ratting yourselves out.
Yeah, I'm like, well, it's my lived experience informs my opinions, and it informs my perspective on the world and my views, and I'm gonna share that because that is what I know, right? I can't know anything else with certainty, but what I can know is my experience. And so if I share from the place of my experience, but I relate that back in a way that could help someone else, or that could help someone else see something from a different perspective and go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And maybe that might, filter into my unconscious and somehow change the way I behave or react or respond in the future.
Yeah.
That's kind of the aim, right? With sharing stories. For me, it's how can I share something that's mine?
Yeah.
My learning, my experience, my failure, my joy, my sadness, my mental health struggles, whatever it is. But not from a place of selfishness, not from a place of I'm sharing because I want you to look at me, right? It's not about looking at me.
No.
And it's not about me, right? It is about me, but it's not about me. Does that make sense?
It's about, very much so. It's about evoking emotion, and you do such a good job of that as well. And then you get the wonderful comments. You get engagement the way you do it. So yeah, if you've never checked out Niti's post, man, get going. She's on LinkedIn. That's very cool. All right. So emotion, when you think about emotion, like you were told, you got to keep it together. When your grandpa died, everybody else was losing their shit. So you had to keep it together, and I had the experience. I just sort of did that to myself and kept things going when my father died. So yeah. So when you think about emotion, what comes up for you? Like what's your learned lesson there? It's like, don't don't hold back or share emotion.
Yeah, don't hold back. And there's a difference between, I guess, and I was talking to someone about this the other day, there's a difference between sharing to the point of discomfort and sharing comfortably, but with emotion, and letting your emotion be and letting it exist in the world, right? And not just within your body or your soul or your
let
being.
it take up
right?
space.
Let it take up space, because when you let your emotion take up space, that's when you can start to process it, right? It's almost, in some ways, if you hold it within, you can't see it, or you think you can't see it, right? But if you have it here in front of you, you can kind of go, okay, this is what it is. How do I now take this emotion and do something with it and process it? You know, use it differently, learn from it, etc. Because until you can take it from here and put it out here,
right,
you can't do anything with it, right? And so for me, that's what it is. And it's not necessarily about taking all your emotion and dumping it onto social media, right? Like, that's not the point. The point is, how do you take the emotion from within you and externalize it,
right,
and share
let people
it with,
know how you processed it.
And it could even be journaling, right? Like, it doesn't even need to be talking to another human being, right? But it's taking that emotion from within self and going, I'm going to take it from here and put it somewhere into the world, so that it takes up a space, whether it's a container of space like a journal is, or whether it's a bigger, wider space, right, where it seeps into different parts of the world, right?
Let it pass through is the number one thing. Drill down with it, like, oh, hello, where are you coming from today, right? That so much awareness comes from that. And also the be okay with it, that the emotion passes through you, right? You don't have to let them get stuck inside. So, like you're saying, get them out there.
And I think that's a huge learning, and it was a massive learning for me, right? Because I really did think after my miscarriages that I could just be in the world and exist as if this hadn't happened, and just keep it within me and suppress it. And it just would be okay, because that's what I'd done all along, and it had worked to some degree. I had thought that it had worked for me before then. So I was like, well, I can just do the same thing with this, you know, really awful, messy, you know, emotional stuff that's just, you know, tearing me apart a little bit inside. But it got to a point where I was like, literally, I have to share this, because I'm at a point where it's exploding from within me. And if I don't share it, it's actually going to literally tear me apart.
Right.
And everything that's stored within is going to come out with it. And I actually found that's what happened when I started talking that first time, because I hadn't been a talker at all. When I started talking about my miscarriages, suddenly I wasn't just talking about my miscarriages. I was talking about all sorts of other things, right? All sorts of other emotional experiences and feelings that I'd stored within me for a long time. And suddenly it was as if they had this new leash on life, right? And it was, now you're out.
Feel a little lighter.
This one is out here. Now here comes this other one. Here comes this other one. And it just crept. And it's amazing, because I swear my whole relationship with emotion has changed in the last few years. And it's, you know, and this is probably a journey of maybe 4 or 5 years, because, you know, my last miscarriage was, I think, 2018. But it's really that, you know, ability to really connect with that emotion and say, you don't own me.
Nice. Yeah.
You don't own me, emotion. I can walk hand in hand with you.
Yep. That healthy detachment. Absolutely.
Yeah. And walk hand in hand with you. When I'm ready to say goodbye, we can say goodbye, and you can be off into the distance. And sometimes perhaps it's an emotion I want to keep close. And sometimes that's an emotion, okay, we can walk side by side. You can just be there in the background, hanging around. You know, when I need you, you're there, you know, and when I don't need you, you can be off, just, you know, at a slight distance, but you're kind of there still. Right? And I think that's when you really develop a very different relationship with your own emotional, spiritual self, right?
It's definitely a mindset growth for sure. And yeah, definitely a release. It's stepping out of victim mentality for sure.
It is. And it's even, even beyond victim mentality, because there's a part of that that's victim mentality. And there's another part of it that's like, I will beat this thing down and I will keep it down because it doesn't need to be anywhere, the strong one. Right? And I'm strong and I control my. So it's,
and I'm doing it for you, Well, that's what you were told, when your grandpa died, like you have to be the strong one, and you're like, okay,
yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
So you had to do that for people. It was like a service you were doing for others, which is 100%. The real mind fuck of it all. Yeah. So lived experience really makes us who we are, and the more awareness we can have to that, like the observe becomes the observer, like you said, you had that sort of almost out of body thing. That's enlightenment.
Yeah
It's pretty cool. And that's when we speak our truth. That's when truth and alignment, they're like two sides of the same coin or something, right? And
100%.
Alignment and authenticity, if you like muscle test it, they're like the highest vibrations. People say, oh, love's the highest vibration. Like, no, it isn't. It's the lowest of all the high vibrations. Well, it's part of all the vibrations, yes, but it's actually quite a low vibration. Joy is higher than love, and peace is higher than joy, and enlightenment is higher than peace. And they said, like, Jesus, Mother Teresa, and Gandhi, they all vibrated around 1,000. Well, guess what? Alignment and authenticity, they vibrate more like 1,200, right in that range, if you just muscle test it. I don't know if you've heard of David Hawkins, but I'm not sure
I have. Yeah,
he's a kinesiologist, and he's muscle tested the different words. And if you know how to muscle test, you can't disagree with them, because it's a muscle test. Everybody the same reading. It's been pretty
fascinating.
Cool.
It's for me, this whole experience of, like, truth and lived experience is huge, right? Because when I first started sharing my stories in a very public way on LinkedIn, or even before that, actually, in my workplace, probably to some degree.
Okay.
It's, I was still in a place of not 100% knowing who I was, right? And it started this real journey of exploration and going, as I was saying before, it's kind of like this, okay, the more I write, the more I share story, the more I reflect, the more I live my life differently, and the more I have this sort of meta awareness of what's going on in my life and around me and with other people, right?
Yeah.
But when you have that, what I found was I suddenly started to go, okay, well, who am I?
Exactly. And that's the important thing, to go blank and let the other person talk, or to be the equal with someone else. If you don't know who you are, you can kiss that one goodbye, right?
And it's even like what you just said, it's even doing that with yourself, right? And going, I'm listening to my deep inner self, right? Not even just listening to that conscious self that's constantly talking and saying, you are this, you are that, I am this, I am that, right? So it's even listening deeper within and going, okay, if I really sit back now, what do I really value? Like, what is really important to me? Like, what do I really care about? Who am I? What is my deeper purpose? And these are all the questions that over the last, can you still hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. It's gone a bit strange. So what I was saying is, it's kind of like this experience of, I was just talking about values and stuff, and like really connecting with your deep inner self. And for me, that was, it was just such a moment of just really understanding who I am and what I'm here to do in this life, and what I'd like to leave behind. And from that moment, what happened and what I found happened was that as I shared more and more, you know, if I got criticism from people, or if there were people who said they didn't quite understand what I was doing, or maybe I shouldn't be doing like writing so much, and maybe I shouldn't be putting myself out there so much, it started to matter less and less and less.
Nice.
Because it was my truth, and it was my purpose.
Yeah.
And it was me living me. And so, you know, all these, you know, emotions and things that you have around judgment by other people, what will other people think, what will they say, how will they react, all those things started to sort of fade away into the distance, because suddenly I was listening to myself more.
Exactly. Right.
And connecting with that. Right.
Yeah. And I'm a book in 30 days coach. And so like I pick up on someone's POV, point of view, pretty quickly in their brand voice and whatever. And if I pick something out, and I can always defend it, and then I have my client defend it, and I like teach my clients how to defend their own point of view, because that's when no one can get to them. That's when no one can hurt them. That's when no one can throw them off emotionally. And everything we do has a basis, a reason, a truth to it, or whatever. And we know there's other ways we could have done it, but we're doing it this way, and we know why we're doing it this way. And then somebody comes in with a criticism, and we have the answer, you know, or we don't even care to have an answer. We just feel, they feel so rock solid. Yeah, it's been beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And it's truly is what sort of enabled me to, I guess, really step away from that previous life, I guess, and really explore new opportunities and new pursuits, you know, which is never something that I thought I would ever do. Like I thought I'd be a lawyer forever.
Yeah.
But, you know,
you stepped out of corporate mentality is what you did.
I stepped out of corporate mentality.
I love it.
I stepped into like my own mentality and owning my own space and owning my own words and my own feelings, and going, do you know what? This is my experience, and this is, I can do something with my experiences and with my thoughts and my views, and be here to serve, you know, in a way that also serves me.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much, Niti. This has been such a great conversation.